Well, in his new book, Timothy Caulfield asks, is Gwyneth Paltrow wrong about everything? And while he certainly draws attention to the dangers of celebrity-endorsed diets and regimens, he also points to a world so consumed with celebrity culture that there are those who will stop at very little when it comes to trying to be a star. Timothy Caulfield is the author of the book, and he's also a professor at the University of Alberta. He's here with us again tonight. Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so I've primped and preened, so I look more like the Gwyneth of the world for tonight. Kidding. Okay, so almost everyone you ask, well, not everyone, but most people say, you want to be famous? Sure. People have this desire to be famous. There are a number of ways to become famous. But when you look at the world, and what kind of fields do people want to be famous in? Because you've looked at this stuff.
I have, and it's incredible the shift that has occurred over the last couple decades, this desire to be famous. So there's been a bunch of surveys and qualitative studies that they have done. And in the past, if you ask, just to use one example, one study as an example, if you ask kids what they wanted to be when they grew up, they would say, astronaut, physician, vet was really popular, those kinds of things, right? Ask them today, and again, a lot of studies have shown this, they want to be either just a celebrity, they say that without any kind of content attached to it, or singer, sports star, or actor. Right, so those are the celebrity, they're viewed as the celebrity professions and what everyone wants to be. Dancers in there too, but I think that's caught by some of the other ones. But that's what the kids want to be, and the vast majority.
And what's the shift? Like, 'cause if a generation ago, I mean, we've always been like, oh, I want to be, that baseball player. I'd like to be able to play ball like him. But as you say, there seems to be this real shift to, I don't even want to be an astronaut or a vet. I want to be, celebrity A, B, or C.
Yeah, the funny thing is the other one that's still on the list is lawyer, which is hilarious because I know for sure they're not thinking real lawyer, right? They're thinking, The Good Wife, right. They're thinking that kind of show.
The celebrity lawyer.
The gorgeous lawyers that have fun all day long. So what caused the shift? Obviously, again, very complicated, complex social phenomenon. And if you look at some really interesting studies that look at how media and celebrity play into this. So one thing that has changed is the value of celebrity in our society has increased, right? So there's interesting sort of data analysis that you can do about just words in popular culture, and words that are associated with becoming famous have really increased over the past couple decades. Really fascinating work. In addition to that, I think that becoming famous and being a celebrity is part of viewed as being a very important part of the American dream. It's a tool for social mobility, right? And again, this is a complete illusion if you look at what the data actually says about your chance of social mobility more broadly, but we can talk about this later, about your actual chances of becoming a celebrity. So I think that's an important part of it. Another big element why people want to be famous now is becoming famous has become a market. Creating an industry around supporting people's desire to become famous, whether it's in the context of sports, whether dance lessons, et cetera, modeling contests. As you know, in the book, I went to one. It's all of that is also building it. And all of these industries benefit from the belief that this is a good idea, that it's an attainable idea, and that we should all be doing it. So they benefit from that myth. So on and on it goes. It's an industry kind of feeds on itself, a myth that feeds on itself, and it's just growing and growing. And it seems to be increasing. Now, I could go on, but the other important thing I think is happening now is social media. All right, social media has also added to this, and this idea that somehow, people can project themselves into the world very easily now, very quickly now. We could do it right now, right? And so I think that also creates this illusion that you can become famous and that you can leverage this fame to more happiness.
And I suppose there's also, before when you were, say you were famous for being a singer. You were famous for being a singer. Now you can add to that, you can market your own perfume, so you can become a perfumier. Yeah. You can sell diets. You can also do social good, go work at the UN or all those things. So your realm of celebrity has expanded somewhat nowadays as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's pushing in the opposite direction too, where you have, the name I heard every day for 3 years while I was working on this book? Kim Kardashian, right? Because I think people view Kim Kardashian as sort of the archetype famous person now because she's famous for nothing. I don't even know what she does, right? Married to Kanye West, and she has reality show status. But that's the other side of the story, right? That people think that you could become famous for doing almost nothing, right? So it seems more obtainable, right?
And like an average person became famous.
I think that's a really important point. In the past, think of Grace Kelly, it was almost like they were royalty, right? An other, right? These famous people were beyond us or different from us. And people like Kim Kardashian and social media and YouTube and the YouTubers all make it seem very close, right? Very close and very obtainable, which is a complete illusion, by the way. But, and people like Kim Kardashian kind of move that forward. And then you're right, once they obtain fame, they use that fame to create a brand and an image around them that also is more than it used to be in the past.
You know, I shouldn't call Kim Kardashian an average person because she came from money.
Yeah,
She's not like, she didn't build the American dream.
Right.
Anyway, okay. Enough about Kim Kardashian for now. I want you to tell us about the modeling contest that you went to. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I did 2 modeling contest things. I did one which builds on exactly what we were just talking about. I signed up for this company where, and there's so many of them. So if you Google, I want to be an actor, I want to be a model, you'll get all these websites that look very, very legitimate, and they are in a sense legitimate, that offer their services to you. So I signed up, which is hilarious, right? And they said, oh yeah, you should come down for an assessment. And so I did that. And it was both hilarious and heartbreaking because when you go to the waiting room, waiting to go into this to have your assessment, there are all these kids there with their parents, and you can see they're all primping and getting ready. And I knew it was a scam. I knew it was just that the chance of this company actually helping you become a star on the Disney Channel are incredibly small. But the fascinating thing is when I actually went in for my assessment, all of a sudden it became an audition, right there. I think they were being careful in their language. And of course, I needed new headshots, even though I had headshots from my book work. Clearly it was a money-making phenomenon and your chances of this kind of industry actually helping you are very small. The other thing I did is I went to what is the best-known IMTA modeling contest in New York. And again, same thing, people pay thousands and thousands of dollars to participate in these modeling contests and in the belief that it's going to vault them to fame. And yes, they were very beautiful people all over the place, but it was the desperation of these families. Some used websites to raise money to go there. They borrowed money from their friends and families, and thousands of dollars. And did it really help any of them? The chance is very small.
But I think it's important to ask you about this and to make the point that this is not like, they're not all just dumb people or poor people. These are people from a cross-section of society.
Yeah, for sure. I saw people from all over the world. I saw Canadians down there, some very, very educated, some not so educated. I think hey, look, and I wanted to be a rock star when I was growing up, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, because I could really relate to this desire, right? This desire for adventure. I don't think it's just fame, it's adventure and excitement and glamour, all these things that come with this illusion of fame, this illusion of celebrity, and even the wealth, of course, and the lifestyle. I think that's all part of it, and people desire that. So yeah, for sure, it cuts across the socioeconomic strata.
And so, given that it's such a universal phenomenon, if I can call it that, and yesterday we talked about some of the evolutionary ways that things like being pretty or liking attractive people have evolved. Where does this impulse to be famous come from? Is it simply cultural, or is there somewhere else we can look to?
Well, I do think that there is this evolutionary desire to want to be better, to always to advance. But I think that right now this desire is almost entirely cultural, right? And I have this theory I have at the end of the book, and it's really hard to get hard numbers on this. I admit up front that this is correlation data and association data. But if you look at the countries that have the lowest amount of social mobility, right? The United States, social mobility almost does not exist in the United States. It's really sad, right? And which is ironic because that's the home of the American dream, right? You have almost no social mobility. UK, also very, very low social mobility. You have these countries, those seem to be the countries that have the highest interest in celebrity, right? You think about those two countries. That's one example. Yes, the end in my analysis is very small, but it's something to think about. Then you look at countries with very high social mobility, places like Denmark and Norway and Sweden and Iceland, where they don't have the same amount of fascination with celebrity. And I actually have a personal anecdote. After I wrote the book, I was giving a talk in Reykjavik in Iceland. And I went to a very small restaurant, and with the host for the the lecture. And who's the most famous Icelandic person you can
Björk.
think? Björk. Who's sitting behind me, right next to me?
No, Björk. Right.
And my host says, you know, are you a fan of Björk? I was a huge fan. I love her. Well, she's sitting right next to you. And if she was in New York City, she probably couldn't walk down the street. If she was in London, she probably couldn't walk down the street. And my host said, in Iceland, we don't treat celebrities as any different. And she was not treated any different. I saw her, you know, she's sitting right next to me, which is a fascinating contrast, right? Fascinating contrast. So I do think that in places like the United States, and to a lesser degree Canada and the UK, this is such a huge part of our perception of how social mobility should play out. This American dream, this idea that we should strive for this fame and fortune, believe in yourself, never give up, reach for the stars. All this kind of language has become embedded in our culture.
Okay, I want to ask you about American Idol, because I think well, you'll tell us about it, but the distinction is, you know, going on a makeover show or whatever is about appearance, whereas American Idol arguably is about talent and skill. So tell us what happened when you auditioned for American Idol.
Yeah, that's right. So I actually start the book with my trying out for American Idol, and of course it was trying to try out for American Idol because I'm clearly too old. I was absolutely fascinated. I thought that more of and people have seen it on TV, even if they've even seen it briefly, these crowds are huge. They're monstrous, these people trying out. And I actually thought that the majority of them would be there in a lark, you know, saying, I'm here because, you know, I just want to have fun experience. But I couldn't believe the degree to which most of the people in the audience, most of the people I interviewed, really thought they had talent. They really thought they were going to make it. And more importantly, it was very important to them. They thought that this was going to pull them out of some kind of bad social situation. Celebrity was their vehicle to happiness, right? And I really got that sense. You know, this is one crowd and just a handful of people I interviewed, but I definitely got that sense. And that very much fits with what the academic literature says, right? That people are very bad at assessing their own talent. They're very bad at assessing their chances. You know, all these cognitive biases come into play. And they are also very bad at assessing what the future is going to be like and what being famous would be like. So all of those biases come into play to make this celebrity industry very easy to sell.
Okay, let's play a clip. This is Ricky Gervais from Extras, which is a hilarious comedy series from the BBC. This is him. He's a struggling actor. He's trying to become famous. Take a look at this.
Why am I not getting any acting roles?
I've been thinking about this, and I'm glad you brought it up. I've got a feeling it could be your shape. It is a very unusual shape, and I'm not sure who would be looking for it. Could you maybe do a bit more exercise?
Could you maybe do a bit more work?
Well,
I don't know what...
No, we can banter all we like, but, I mean, all I say is if you insist on remaining, you know, a blob, could you maybe at least get a tan?
They're looking for a fat bloke with a tan, are they? What's that for? Oliver Stone's story of Buddha. Before I get up and walk out of here, possibly forever, have you got anything for me at all?
Loads of stuff. Do you fancy Panto in Guildford with Les Dennis?
No. What, that's it?
Yeah.
You said there was loads of stuff.
I thought you'd go with that one.
What's the role?
It is the part of the genie in Aladdin.
Oh, they're happy with a fat bloke for that, are they?
With a tan, ideally.
Okay, so a much younger, thinner Ricky Gervais, you know, trying to have a go at it. So bring this back to reality for us. How realistic is it for the average musician? I'm saying average. I'm not saying poor. Average musician, actor, athlete to become famous.
Okay, so this is grim data. The summary is that the chances are so small that you can fairly say it's not going to happen.
Even if you're above average, right?
Even if you're above average. So we do a breakdown of, in the book, I do a breakdown of the chance of making it on a show like American Idol. I do a breakdown of how your chances if you're an independent musician. I do a breakdown of what it really is like to be an independent musician and actors. I think everyone knows how hard it is to make it as an actor. But if you actually look at the numbers, it is so grim. In addition to that, even if you are a working actor, becoming a working actor, your chances of making a decent living are incredibly small. And the other thing I find fascinating is sports too, because people say, okay, maybe those two kind of star vehicles are all based on luck, etc. But what about sports? even there, your chances are so small. You could be one of the best hockey players in your community right now, and the chance of you hitting the ice in the NHL or playing 3 or 4 games in the NHL are so slim that it's near impossible. It's near impossible. There's and the other important element is there's so much luck involved in all of it. It's really luck driven whether you're going to make it.
Okay, you're killing dreams as we move on, okay?
The dream crusher.
Dream crusher, Timothy Caulfield. Okay. Yeah, I have a number of friends who work in film and television, actors who I think by a lot of estimations are highly successful, and yet they seem to determine success in a way that we, the regular folk who work in different industries, don't determine success. So where is that disconnect? Why is success measured so differently for certain fields?
Yeah, I think this is an excellent point. It goes back to your comment about me being a dream crusher because I don't want to be at all. And in fact, I think it's liberating. I heard what you said again and again and again. So I interviewed actors that if you looked at their CV, you'd say, wow, you're a really successful actor. And they still feel like they're struggling. They still feel like they haven't made it, right? So in these professions, celebrity status is the end game, right?
Right,
That's
so it's
the
not
goal.
success is equated with celebrity.
Yeah, it's success is equated with celebrity, right? With being on the cover of the magazine, et cetera. And I had this great quote from a former Canadian Idol, and it's one of my favorite quotes in the whole book because he said, look, he said the opposite. He's really found a happy spot in his life. He's making average money, right? He's not wealthy, but he's making a good living doing what he loves. And that was his goal. And he has people come up to him all the time and say, well, when are you going to make it? I hope you're going to make it. And in his mind, I already have. I'm happy. I'm doing what I love. And I love the quote because he says, people don't go up to the person working in IT in your office and say, gosh, I hope you're Bill Gates someday. Keep trying. Keep working at it. People, but they say that.
Right, and they deem him to be a quote-unquote failure.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is obviously hard to
Ridiculous.
take.
Yeah.
And obviously hard to take. Okay, I want to stay with the arts for a moment. And this might seem like an obvious question, but let me throw it at you. What are some of the costs associated with being famous?
So you've made it. You are a celebrity, right? So I think this is also a really important question because not only is the journey an illusion, this idea that you can make it, the destination is an illusion too. Now, before I
Continue to dream crush, yes.
There absolutely, I'm sure there are many celebrities that are loving their life and incredibly happy and are smiling down at all of us. But if you look at the data, for example, sports stars, there's an interesting study that was done a few years ago that found that many, when they're finished, they're 27 years old and they have no money, they're divorced and don't really have many job prospects, right? This is the kind of thing that happens. And in the context of acting, again, I heard it over and over again, people become famous and it doesn't make them happier. There's no evidence that makes you happier. And I have this great quote from this former child actor. She was Nellie on A Little House on the Prairie. She says, if you have problems in your life, becoming famous just amplify them. They don't resolve them, they make them worse. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire. And so many people, she feels, think that fame is going to make things better. It's going to resolve their unhappiness problems. And she says it's almost always the exact opposite.
Okay, again, continuing to pull the veil behind the curtain off all of this. Yesterday we talked about some of the physical extremes people go to who want to be famous or who are famous, and I want to ask you about the emotional costs, which you talked a little bit about there, but making it big. And the Whiplash, the movie that came out this year, really sort of focused. That was one of the focuses of this movie. So it's a music student, a drummer who's being pushed very, very hard and to the extent of abuse by his teacher. So this is J.K. Simmons' character, who won the Oscar this year, explaining his method of teaching the young boy.
Truth is, I don't think people understood what it was I was doing at Schaefer. I wasn't there to conduct. Any moron can wave his arms and keep people in tempo. I was there to push people beyond what's expected of them. I believe that is an absolute necessity. Otherwise, we're depriving the world of the next Louis Armstrong, the next Charlie Parker.
I'm not sure if you've seen Whiplash, but I'll make the point if you haven't. And it actually came out last year. I said this year, but it was 2014. So the idea of Whiplash is that you got to work hard, that creative people are different, that you have to go to the limits, that you have to push yourself, that you have to be a bit of a jerk, and that this is all part of the creative. Creative people are different. They're not like you and I, regular folk. So are there consequences for not putting all that, like, to try and be famous. If you don't put in that, you don't get to be famous.
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of interesting things underlying that. Something I heard a bunch while working on this, interviewing actors and musicians, is you can't have a plan B, right? You have got to be all in, right? And I heard this from relatively famous people and people who are struggling. Because if you have a plan B, the idea is it's so easy to fall into plan B, and all of a sudden plan A, being an actor, a singer, whatever, falls away. So you can't have a plan B, you got to be all in. And there was also this sense that if you're not all in, you're not worthy, right? Now, so I think that Whiplash touches on that, right? So the other interesting aspect of the story is this idea that you can work your way to fame, that you can, if you work hard enough and you're dedicated enough, your dreams will be fulfilled. And again, there's no evidence to support that. I know that's heartbreaking. There's no evidence to support that. Yes, for many things you have to work hard, have the talent to have the ticket to make it, for sure, for sure. But a lot of it is luck. And then, of course, the other element is what is making it. Now, I like to believe that making it is doing something you loved, excelling at something that you love, adding to a craft, doing an art, or is making it becoming world famous. Right? And I think those are two different things. The former, loving what you do and excelling at it, I think is something that we should nurture, and those are intrinsic reasons for doing a craft. The latter one, becoming world famous and becoming a celebrity, that's an extrinsic reason for doing it, and probably, I think, is the less healthy of the two.
I have to say that one of the things that's interested me in celebrity more recently is this sort of social arm, this social good that they attempt to do, because I think there's something, you watch them and you're like, okay, well, you're not just flouncing about on the stage or whatever you normally do, you're actually doing some good in the world. That's a relatively new-ish phenomenon, right? In celebrity culture, this sort of social good.
Well, celebrities have been involved in political things forever, but I do think that that is Now, I again talk about this often when I'm given the opportunity, because it sounds like I'm bashing celebrity. Look, celebrities, celebrities not going away, right? So I think we need to embrace it, and we need to understand its role it plays in society and how we can use it in a constructive way. And this is one of the constructive ways that we can use celebrity, right? Create awareness around issues, et cetera, right? But I also think that there needs to be more voices in celebrity culture, people with knowledge on particular topics, and celebrities shouldn't be viewed necessarily as experts, but rather perhaps a vehicle, communication tools.
Okay, I want to play, this is Patricia Arquette from earlier this year at the Oscars. She became very well known for what she said. Let's play a bit of that.
To every woman who gave birth, to every taxpayer and citizen of this nation, we have fought for everybody else's equal rights. It's our time to have wage equality once and for all, and equal rights for women in the United States of America.
Okay, so there's Patricia Arquette calling for equal pay for women, Meryl Streep up on her feet applauding. After this, I should say, there's a lot of breakdown. It was interesting of the data of how women are paid comparatively. Did you read some of that data?
I did,
yeah,
absolutely.
about
some
how
of it's in the book.
Well, tell me about it then.
Yeah, I first of all, I love the movie. She was awesome.
I know, you can't bash Patricia Arquette yet.
But she is right, and she's right about it in the context of acting too. Women are treated so incredibly different from men in the entertainment industry. It is phenomenal, and it hasn't gotten that much better, right? There really is this 40-year-old cliff where women fall off of, and that you have to be young, you have to be beautiful. Men can age, apparently, they're allowed to age, but that women are not allowed to age. I use the movie Hansel and Gretel, which was a terrible sci-fi kind of movie, where the actor and actress are kids together as Hansel and Gretel, and then when they're older and the show takes place, one is 20 years older than the other one. Like some magic happened. So absolutely, I think she's correct about the inequities, and as you know, social and society more broadly, there is absolutely this wage gap.
Yeah, and colored women get paid much less, and
it's
this breakdown. Okay. But aside from the disparity, these celebrities like Arquette, we saw Sean Penn at that same award show talking about social good. We see them all over, the Angelinas, the Brangelinas. How influential are they when it comes to pushing social change?
Well, I think that they do. I think it helps. And I think this is let's have the positive story, right? The positive side of celebrity. And you can see it even with Angela Jolie and her we've actually studied this. at the Health Law Institute. And when she made the announcement about her double mastectomy and getting her genetic testing done, that had a measurable, almost immediate impact on the interest in and awareness of breast cancer and in genetic testing. Now, this is also a really good example of how complex, even in that context, it is, because is it a good story or a bad story? Did it increase women's concern about breast cancer? Women already greatly overestimate their risk of breast cancer. Did that hurt or help? Not clear, but it does really show the power of celebrity and how I think we need to recognize the power of celebrity and think of constructive ways that we can use it.
Your dream crush, but you redeemed yourself. Thank you. Really nice to talk to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.